Welcome back, everybody. We're doing another episode of Indie Reads Aloud, and I'm super, super excited because today SW Raine is coming back to read to us. Actually, she's not coming back. She's actually here. See, look, she's actually in the room. There she is.
Yay.
Um, so Raine has been with us before. Raine writes urban fantasy and steampunk wonderment, and she now has four books, four books, two of each, and she's working on a third in both. So, um, same bat time, same bat channel. Check back. Make sure that you catch the next episode. Raine is Canadian born and raised and constantly moved between Ontario and Quebec with her military family. She moved to Michigan in 2004, where she currently still resides with her husband and son. Both, by the way, are amazing human beings. Just thought I'd throw that in there. She has always had a vivid imagination and loved reading and writing from a very young age. She took courses in children's literature through ICL in Illinois, and she published her debut steampunk adventure in 2020. She's participated in NaNoWriMo for over a decade. It's for like, what, 15 years now?
It has
15?
been 20 years that
20
I've
years.
been doing
So,
this challenge. Yep.
okay, so I'm going to change this to 2 decades in the show notes. Um,
This
and
year was my 20th year doing that
it's
challenge.
a long time to do that. But wait, okay, now we have to work the math here because you've been doing NaNoWriMo, which is 50,000 word challenge to write 50,000 words in a month. The goal is to have a finished manuscript at the end of the month that you can then tweak and edit and get ready. So, do we have like a bunch of manuscripts sitting in a drawer waiting to be polished?
I
Or have
do.
you just abandoned them all?
I mean, kind of abandoned, kind of not, in the sense of, um, after I challenged myself to write 50,000 words, when 50,000 words became easy, I challenged myself to write in different genres.
Okay.
So I have them in a bunch of different genres. Now, eventually, I would like to either take those manuscripts that I did write and either steampunkify them or turn them urban fantasy in order
And
to
not
release
actually
them
follow through and do them in the genres you wrote them in?
and not actually follow through and do them to the genres because I am specifically a steampunk and urban fantasy author. So,
Okay, I find that really, really humorous because those of you who know Raine know that she is a die-in-the-wool pantser. She does not plan 90% of what comes out of her imagination, and yet she's curtailing herself to just two genres. So this is a conundrum we will probably never solve. It's what I've come to understand. We just have to accept that it's going to be two, and it's the only thing you actually plot.
if we could call it that.
Right. So the latest book is The Gatekeeper's Portal, and this is book two in the Elementals trilogy.
Yes.
So for those of us who haven't listened to book one yet, can you give us an over arc of the story? But before you do that, I want to make sure we get this listener advisory in. I always forget this because I have so much fun talking to my friends in this program. I forget that not everybody knows you as well as I do. So there is a listener advisory for this episode. Um, be aware that there could be violence, strong language, substance abuse, and mentions of child endangerment and exploitation. So if you have little ears listening in on this podcast, you might want to preview it before let the little ones listen, just to be on the safe side. So give me the over arc of the Elementals trilogy. What's going on here?
So in the Elementals trilogy, I have the real world, but I also have different elemental realms. So we have the realm of water, we have the realm of fire, the realm of air, the realm of earth. And to not confuse planet Earth with the realm of Earth, planet Earth is called Gaia. because
Because that's not confusing at all.
it gets confusing really quick. So they have mostly lived in harmony until something happened and everybody had to be exiled to Gaia. And Gaia specifically because there is very little magic that you can pull from unless you A, came from one of the realms, B, were born into or married into it, and there was another reason. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but um, so so the other thing is nope, I forgot it. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I got very little sleep.
Yeah.
So something happens, and one of my characters, her name is Olivia, she has this dream that somebody in the dream tells her that she needs to find the elementals and the guardians. She just brushes it off as a really weird dream, goes about her day, but then she gets this pull telling her, no, you really need to go find these elementals and guardians. So she starts from California and she goes all the way to Florida following this like gut instinct pull. And she ends up finding Ferenc. And she needs to convince Ferenc that he is a guardian. And Ferenc is a very big skeptic, so it took a long time to convince him of this. And they end up finding the elemental in question, and he needs to hurry up and learn these new abilities that, first of all, he was all like, that's impossible. Um, he has to learn these abilities because the villain not only wants to use these elemental powers for himself, but he plans on the bigger, more global, and by global I mean like controlling the other realms and all of this stuff. So,
Okay, so just to help us one more layer of understanding, because we are jumping into the middle of a series, can you simply, I don't know if that's asking too much, simply define for us what an elemental is versus what a guardian is?
so an elemental is in my world anyway, an elemental is a being that comes from these realms and can actually turn into um a creature associated with that element. And this is actually based off of, I think his name was Paracelsus. He did write a book in like whatever time BC about elementals. So for the element of water, you have a sylph, uh, a creature that can control water. For fire, it was a salamander because it was believed that salamanders like came from fire. However, in my world, the fire elemental is a phoenix because that to me represents,
Well, that
a
makes
a
perfect
fire.
sense. Yeah,
Right,
that,
exactly. It
that,
makes more
yeah,
sense than a salamander. But
absolutely.
so each realm has one ruler, and this one ruler is the only one who can transform into these
Mag
creatures.
magical creatures.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the guardians are their basically their personal bodyguard.
got it. Okay, that works. Cool. All right. You're going to read a little bit for us, and then we'll talk more after.
Yes.
Super fun. I'm really looking forward to this because this book is like brand spanking new,
Brand spanking new.
and I haven't even had a chance to peek at it at any of the festivals yet. So I'm really
I
excited.
don't even have paperbacks ready yet. I am still waiting on my cover designer to finish the paperback. So
But they're out in hardback now,
they are out in ebook right now.
an ebook right now. Okay,
Yes.
very cool. Will they eventually be in hardback to go
They
with the
will,
other?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool, cool. All right, because once you start collecting one, you gotta have them all.
Absolutely.
It's like Pokemon. You gotta have them all. Okay. When you are ready,
All
Raine,
right.
please
So
take
I
the
just,
microphone and read aloud. You're reading from The Gatekeeper's Portal, which is book 2 in the Elementals trilogy. Did I get that right?
yes.
I can check another thing off my list today. So the
Um,
microphone is yours.
all right. So I'm going to give a little bit of situation here. This chapter is in Comran's point of view. Comran is one of the mercenaries that my trio has hired to find the gatekeeper.
Okie dokie.
All right. Start my timer. There we go. Let's go. Tracking a ghost through time took patience. Thankfully, Comran had an infinite supply. Patience mattered when no clear leads existed, and he had nothing more than a name and a house to work with. No direction, no tangible clues, and no certainty that rewinding time here would reveal anything useful. But if something waited to be found, he'd find it. The vehicle slowed, tires crunching over ice and packed snow. He remained still as he took in the quiet neighborhood. Its stately townhouses stood tall, stretched in elegance, their ornate facades softened by winter's hush. This is it, Olivia said. He believed her, but this house, it didn't belong. Even without knowing its history, he could see it had once stood on equal footing with the others, but something had stripped it of its status. Whatever event had ruined the home had not been kind enough to finish the job. Instead, it had left behind a reminder that lingered, silent and heavy. Ferenc leaned forward slightly. Does anybody even still live there? Believe it or not, Olivia replied. The temperature greeted Comran brusquely as he stepped out of the car, seeping through whatever opening of his thick coat it could find. He nestled his nose and cheeks deep into his scarf as the cold nipped unpleasantly at his skin, bringing back unwanted flashes of splattered crimson atop fresh blankets of crystalline white. With a shuddered exhale, he shoved his childhood memories back into the depths of his mind by focusing on the crumbling house. At first, he rewound time slowly. The present softened at the edges, flaking away in increments. Figures emerged in the muted grayscale overlay. They moved fluidly, their actions like a film playing in reverse. Some entered the house, others left, their interactions silent but unbroken. Cameron continued rewinding the events when a familiar pale white aura entered the picture. He adjusted his focus, watching as Olivia's figure spoke with someone inside the car. Their postures suggested conversation, but no sound accompanied the exchange, their words locked in the past. What do you see? Though Moses had exited the vehicle and stood next to him on the sidewalk, his voice barely broke through the thick gaze of Comran's ability. Thick haze, I'm sorry, of Comran's ability, distant and muted, as if struggling to carry through deep water. Comran squinted, trying to extract more details. He focused on the second figure as time continued to rewind, placing them inside the house. A third figure lingered on the second floor for a moment, but nothing out of the ordinary stood out. He forced his tongue to move, but his body resisted, trapped in the weight of the past. What did her parents say? He asked instead. Each movement cost him extra effort to accomplish, his muscles nearly unresponsive. Even talking felt like his tongue fought its way through a spoonful of peanut butter. Every syllable sluggishly resisted, his voice dragging behind the rest of him. They don't know where she is, Olivia replied from inside the vehicle, her voice carrying through the open door. And her mother doesn't care. She disowned her as a child. Why? Ferenc asked. She claims Anya threw a fit, but her father says something spooked her pretty bad. This new information sharpened Cameron's focus, giving him permission to delve deeper into the past. He forced time to rewind faster, pushing beyond his usual careful pace. He turned the clock back so far, pain coiled around his skull, the pressure growing with each passing second until he could no longer hide the wince that rippled uncomfortably through his muscles. Body and mind fought for control. Instinct urged him to pull out, but he refused. Hesitation had no place here. His job depended on it. And a king's bounty hung in the balance, Mithra's fortune. Hey, you're pushing too far. Moses's voice drifted further away, distance warping the sound. The warning lingered, offering a tether back to reality, but Kamran ignored it. He couldn't afford to heed. His persistence earned him a flash of red, splitting through the past before it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. He steadied his breath, forcing himself to stay present despite the discomfort. There, he said, trying to point with his chin. Whether he succeeded or not remained to be seen. With controlled precision, he slowed time to a natural flow, allowing the past to unfold at its own pace so he could study the upcoming event. The house's past played out before him in layered shadows, each movement ghost-like and detached. A family of four resided inside the house, one adult and two children in one bedroom, and a slender figure in a dress in another bedroom. Nothing out of the ordinary. A vehicle diverted his attention as it pulled into the driveway. Two adults and a single child emerged and approached the door. Through the transparent house, the children rushed down the stairs and reached for the handle. The entire world around him shifted from blacks and grays to bright red. Fire blazed everywhere. He'd braced himself for the flash he'd seen earlier, but it still startled him. His muscles tensed, and he might have even jumped, a feat considering the disconnect between his mind and body. The overlay of the red world jammed into reality like a square peg forced through a circular hole. It distorted and twisted in ways the mind refused to accept. Yanahem, hell itself, had appeared into the past. A monstrous, demonic creature unlike any he'd seen before swiped its enormous clawed hand through the flames, its massive maw stretched wide. Cameron's throat constricted as it took one of the children. Then, as instantly as it had appeared, hell vanished. The world around him turned shadowy once more, the demonic being vanished with it. Only a faint red glow clung to the remaining child, flickering before fading entirely as their small body crumpled. Darkness pressed in around him. Cameron's mind reeled as he tried to return to the present, but his body refused to follow. Move, return, escape, he commanded, but nothing obeyed. His brain jackhammered against his skull at the same speed and intensity as his heart against his ribcage. The past still clung to him, refusing to let go, locking him in a place that no longer existed. In all the times he'd ever used his ability, he'd never witnessed anything like what he just saw. Cameron tried to reach for something, anything, to help him distinguish the past from the present, but his limbs remained paralyzed, trapped beneath the weight of the past. He'd pushed too far. The darkness deepened, nothingness stretched in every direction. Time had lost all meaning. It had been seconds since he rewound time, minutes, hours, or maybe none of it at all. A sound drifted through the void, faint and shapeless. A voice, maybe, but the words blurred together, too faint, too distant, too warped to grasp. Or maybe he'd imagined it, but the sound came again and again. His world jolted violently, the tremor buzzing through every nerve. A voice, urgent, calling, reached him through the darkness. Come on, Cameron, come back. The name, his name, cut through everything. A spark, a flicker of light that rekindled inside the suffocating black. Moses. Another violent shake. The sensation crawled over his skin, pressure beckoning him forward, but the past resisted, clinging to him like quicksand, threatening to drag him under. Cameron latched onto the familiarity of Moses's voice, clawing his way forward, tearing through the paralysis by sheer force of will. He used Moses's voice as an anchor, and reality slammed back into him, finally breaking him free of his bond with the past. Every nerve inside his body roared back to life in sharp electric agony. His vision blurred, his senses overloaded all at once in a disorienting mess, as light blazed too bright, cold stabbed too deep, and sound crashed too loud. The air reeked of sulfur, the acrid burn stinging his nostrils, and a sour taste curdled at the back of his throat, threatening to make him choke. The nausea hit immediately, his stomach lurching with violent protest. Moses gripped tighter on his shoulders. Come back, he urged through gritted teeth, his voice rough with something dangerously close to panic. Then he gave a sharp exhale. Oh, alhamdulillah. His forehead pressed against Kamran's, the relief in the gesture more telling than words. You do not even believe in Allah. His voice barely scraped out, hoarse and paper thin, but he forced his lips into the faintest of smiles. The words should have come with a teasing edge, something to lighten the crushing weight of the moment, but they didn't. Because after receiving a letter from Ariel, from Mithra, he didn't know if he believed in Allah anymore either. Moses huffed, a breath almost like a laugh, but it carried too much leftover tension to be anything close to amusement. Cameron wanted to say more, to tell Moses he'd never been so relieved to see him, but the pain crashed in again, tearing through his skull with ruthless force. His stomach clenched and his limbs trembled. Come on, Ferenc said from next to him, his tone steady and urging, before we get any unwanted attention. Hands gripped Cameron's arms, and only then did he register the hard-packed snow beneath him. He hadn't even realized he'd gone down. His stomach coiled tight from the sudden movement as they lifted him, and his balance wavered as the cold air bit against his overheated cheeks. Then it struck. His stomach twisted violently, the migraine too much to handle. He barely managed to turn before he doubled over, violently retching. Footsteps shifted nearby, controlled but weighted, before something cool pressed against his palm. Not harsh or hurried, just firm and steady. Snow. Here. Moses's voice remained quiet and gentle, only ever reserved for him. Clean yourself up. Cameron tightened his grip on the snow, pressing it against his lips. His limbs trembled, his muscles weak from the strain, but the sharp chill grounding him enough to breathe through the worst of it. Ferenc exhaled sharply. Is he all right? Moses positioned himself between him and Ferenc, creating a barrier. Though Cameron didn't lift his head, he recognized the unwavering stillness. He's fine. The words rang false, but their purpose mattered more than the truth. Cameron closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself before straightening his spine. His scarf had loosened during the ordeal, and thick wool uneven against his coat. Before Moses could adjust it for him, he lifted a shaky hand and fixed it himself, tugging the fabric back into place. Moses remained still, watching but not interfering. Cameron tightened his jaw, drawing in a slow breath through his nose. The trembling hadn't yet subsided, and the ache behind his eyes throbbed nonstop. Without wasting another second, Moses helped him into the SUV. He sank into the seat, barely holding back a sigh of relief. The cold from the snow still clung to his fingers, but heat started creeping under his skin once more. As the vehicle pulled away, every tiny bump in the road sent another sharp pulse through his skull. He shut his eyes and exhaled through his nose before tearing off his scarf and cracking the window. The air brushed against his face, cool and grounding. He focused on it, hoping to keep the nausea from getting worse. What did you see? Moses asked. Cameron wanted to answer, to tell him about the impossible and terrifying scene he'd witnessed, but he only managed a low groan. Between his pounding skull and the nausea still twisting at his stomach, the words remained lodged in his throat. He shut his eyes tighter, pressing his fingers against the bridge of his nose. The pressure did nothing to dull the sharp pain from behind his eyes, and every small jolt from the road sent another one through his gut. Don't throw up in the rental, Ferenc warned from the driver's seat. Cameron barely acknowledged the comment. Once back at the hotel, the trio stepped out, their boots crunching over the snow, but Cameron remained in his seat, unmoving. The moment he tried to stand, he'd risk passing out, throwing up, or something worse, and none of the options appealed to him much. Moses shifted beside him. Of course he'd stayed. That should have reassured him, but it only confirmed what he already suspected. A lecture loomed. And it didn't loom long. You pushed too hard. Moses's scolding carried no bite, but the low rasp to it stirred up shame anyway. He'd frightened him. Cameron exhaled slowly, his eyes still shut. I needed to see it. You could have been lost forever, but I wasn't. His voice barely held any strength, each syllable requiring more effort than it should have. You were there to save me. Moses hissed out a breath, irritation crackling just beneath the surface. Cam, I'm serious. That was reckless even for a king's bounty, let alone some fucking fictional character. He peeked through one eye. His vision swam from the effort, but he caught enough. Moses's rust-colored eyebrows furrowed deeper than he'd ever seen before. He shut his eyes again. Enough. Moses sighed in his tone of surrender. Yes, Highness. Cameron would have bristled at the name if his head hadn't been pounding. Instead, he let it slide, unwilling to waste the effort. Moses shifted again, no doubt getting comfortable to stay as long as needed. I'm glad you're back, he said quietly. The tension in his body eased as he sank into the quiet steadiness of Moses's presence. They sat in silence, not awkward, not heavy, just there. It stretched on for ages, or maybe only a few minutes. Time had lost meaning beneath the pounding in his skull. Finally, Moses spoke again. What do we do now? He didn't answer right away. The thought of using his ability again twisted his stomach, but their mission hadn't finished, not even close. We rest, we buy warmer clothing, then we follow the horizon to the Gatekeeper. Are you up for it? If every use of his ability took this much out of him from the contract, he doubted he'd be able to physically handle it. But this job promised a king's reward, a god's reward. I will after I rest. A quick knock rattled the window, sending a fresh spike of pain through Comran's skull and his stomach twisting in protest. His eyes shot open long enough to see Ferenc before the searing pain forced them shut once more. We have rooms, Ferenc said. End of chapter.
Okay. So,
Just in time. Look at that.
oh, yeah, you cut it really, really close. I, I am, I love to hear you read because your writing is so tremendously tactile. Everything your characters experience, you translate that to the page so well that I'm ready to retch. I mean, it's just that great. It's very, very cool. Well done.
Thank you.
Um,
Also, for
yes.
this book specifically, I took out almost all instances of was and weren't and wasn't and were. And because I was told that my specific usage of those words was telling instead of showing,
Aha. See the value of beta readers right there.
right?
Yeah. No, that it's very, very cool. It does feel very much like as the reader we get to embody these characters and slip under their skin rather than just watching it take place. So that congratulations, you did a very good job with that.
Thank you.
It's very cool. Um, so this is book two of a planned trilogy,
Yes.
although planned being a loose term in your world.
Well, I have already written part three because I wrote um I wrote The Elemental's Guardian in 2000 in Nano of 2011, I think. And I wrote The Gatekeeper's Portal and part three together as one part in Nano of 2013. And then in 2017, I tried to merge it all into one book, but it was going to be too big. So eventually I split it into three. So it is written. It's going to need a lot of changes because I made a lot of changes to book two.
Sure, because you refine as you go, right? You
And
refine as
not
you
only
process
that,
and
but my alpha readers, when my alpha readers gave me back the feedback, they said, no, this doesn't work. So 95% of the Gatekeeper's Portal is a completely different version than what my alpha readers read.
that's remarkable.
And then obviously there were the small changes that I needed to make after the beta readers got a hold of it. So right now, part three is going to need a complete rewrite as well because now none of it matches to book two.
Okay, so here's a really good question this leads into. When you start refining book three, you have this skeleton that you had way back in 2015. So how do you know as you go what is important enough to keep and what you have to let go? Or do you just set it aside and say maybe that's going to be in book four?
There will not be a book four.
Not
There will
doing
not.
it. Okay.
I have the main skeleton is pretty much gonna stay the same. It's just going to be like the elements in between that I will need to drastically tweak. But the whole purpose, the whole this connects book three finally connects the events of book two and book one is in book three. And it's those main things that I have to keep in. It's just going to be everything else in order to get to
So
these
all the
points.
tiny details and the transitions, those are the things you have to rewrite to make all the puzzles fit so you get a complete picture.
Yes. And there will need to be like major scene rewrites, probably chapter rewrites, in order to get to these, I guess, plot points in all technicality.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, it's going to need major rewrites, but the structure as a whole is going to stay the same.
Okay, so at the risk of asking horrible questions. Do you have an idea for the next book after you finish this trilogy?
No.
Okay, that's fair.
I think I might have probably thought about it at one point, but since I'm not a planner in any stretch of the imagination, I'm
Is
just
there
gonna
one of those
go with the
manuscripts
flow.
in the drawer that you feel more drawn to pulling out and revising than something else?
Maybe,
Okay.
maybe. I do know that my gosh, my thing keeps going out. I do know that I do have an urban fantasy trilogy that I wrote actually when I first started Nano. And
Could that
I
be
know
a
that
resurrection project?
that will be an eventual resurrection, but because it's my baby,
Ah,
um, I want to be able to give it as much attention as I can, and I would actually prefer that I get a little bit more readers. Um, I get a little bit more interest in what I currently write before I bring that in.
you want to make sure it's completely potty trained before you throw it out into the world.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So the next book we can look forward to from you is another steampunk, correct?
Yes, I am
Okay, great.
currently in the revising stages of book two of the Adventures of Captain Keenan. So, my Rise of the Sky Pirate.
Okay,
It's a
awesome.
mess. It is a mess. I can tell it was written during I don't think it was Nano at that point. I think that was First Draft Detroit's First Draft Frenzy. But I
But
could
you
tell
can
it was
tell,
written during my
yeah,
50,000 word 1 month sprint.
because it's a lot of silliness and words that don't connect. And what
It's
was I thinking?
it's a lot of what was I thinking?
Yeah.
It's a lot of because right now all I'm doing is reading and leaving myself notes. And I have a lot of, well, this doesn't work because of this.
Hmm.
And well, how are they doing this if or I think my favorite was find the real word for this.
Oh yeah, word bingo. That's always fun. Awesome. Well, I'm not even going to ask you when it's going to come out because I know better, but I'm excited for when it does come out because it's a really cool series, and I recommend people go back and look for it.
I love my Sky Pirate Captain. I love him so
Yep,
much.
they're great characters. It's a wonderful story. So, um,
He was only a side character in the Techno Mage. His goal was literally to get the trio from point A to point B, and that was it. And then I was done with him. But I couldn't keep
eh,
calling him the captain, the captain, the captain, so I had to give him a name. And when I gave him a name,
oh
he took
yeah,
over.
yep,
And I
yep.
said, "Hold up, this is not your story."
Once you name them, they get power that we can't always control, right?
Yep. So I
It's
said,
tough to wrangle them once you name them.
well, I told him, I said, "Hold up, this isn't your story." And when he was done, I said, well, that's kind of sad because I really liked him. And I had a friend who was all like, well, why don't you give him his own series? And I'm all like, yes. So that is how Rise of the Sky Pirate came to be because I needed to know how he became that Sky Pirate captain.
Fair. That's fair. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that one when it comes out. We've already got the other two in that series. We've got two in this series with a third to look forward to. I'm so excited. Your writing career is just doing great things, and I can't wait to see what comes out next.
I can't wait to see what I managed to do this year.
It's always the adventure, isn't it? What? Here are the goals. Now, what did I do? Thank you so much for coming on the program, Raine. It's such a
Thank you for
delight to
having
have
me.
you. Always, you're always welcome to come back and read to me anytime you like. Have a great day.
Thank you.